All right, Barton Fink. Um, Welcome to our final film of film class, the thing that ends it all. Um, the way I structured the class was 2001 was just a prologue. It was just supposed to set an idea in your head that movies can do other things than simply be entertaining. And so I tried to give you a movie that many people find extremely boring, but that it's exciting in a different way. It's just up to something else, and that movies can do other kinds of things and just be entertainment. Um, and I had Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3. And Unit 1 and 2 and 3 each had three movies each that followed by a David Lynch movie. The idea was David Lynch's movies are so weird that it helps to kind of think about where they're coming from. They don't just appear out of nowhere from Neptune. He is responding to movies earlier people made. Um, but David Lynch, I'm sure you noticed, and a lot of the movies we looked on along the way were interested in mystery. And one of the things I was trying to teach you this semester was, they're not puzzles to be solved. Artwork is not a code where you're supposed to like crack the code by translating what looks like gibberish into normal sentences. It suggests things and ideas, and instead of cracking the code, it's better to kind of think about the ideas that you've been presented with and just accept, instead of trying to solve it so that the world of the characters makes sense. A movie is a thing in your world, so you should think about the issues that it brings up for you and for the audience, and why is the director, why did they make it this way, and what does the audience get out of this, and the relationship between the director and the audience, rather than trying to like, I'm faced with something confusing, I better make it make sense. So we did those 3 units, and now class is over, and we've reached our final film, and our final film is Barton Fink, from the Coen brothers. It is one of my favorite films of all time. And I thought it was a good way to end the class because I think it's about a lot of the things this class has been about. I'm sure some of you guys are watching this now being like, what the fuck was that movie about? But it's about something. Um, it's about a lot of the things that this semester's been about. But it's also like funny. It's a darkly funny movie. It's a goofy movie. It's a strange movie. But it's more sort of fun than some of the. I realized I made you guys sit through some pretty intense experiences. So I wanted to, and it's Barton Fink's intense, but it's weirdly funny. So I thought I would end with Barton Fink. Um, so let's talk about what Barton Fink does. I mentioned in this class that one thing you should do when you're watching movies is always pay attention to the first thing the director shows you and the last thing the director shows you. It might be quite important. So let's talk about the first thing you see in Barton Fink. The first thing you see in Barton Fink is wallpaper. It's the opening credits over wallpaper. The second thing you see in Barton Fink is behind the scenes of a play. Right, Barton is standing back there. The play is going on, but the camera is backstage, and you get to see kind of what's going on behind the scenes with the levers and the pulleys for the curtain and everybody back there. That is what the movie is about. That sets up a pattern, an idea that is going to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. A lot of people watch Barton Fink, and it just seems like a lot of random crazy stuff is happening that's not super connected to each other. But once you recognize that the initial thing in the movie, wallpaper and behind the stage, once you see that that is the image that captures everything that happens in the movie over and over and over again, then what you're really looking at is just this idea repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated until the movie's over and somebody learns a goddamn lesson. And the lesson Barton Fink learns, I hope, is the lesson that you guys will also learn. And I hope that I've sort of spent the whole semester trying to teach it to you. So let's go see what it is. What is the point of the wallpaper in Backstage? Well, it's two things. The wallpaper is something that covers up. The whole point of wallpaper is you don't like your walls. You want to cover them up with something. So wallpaper is a cover. Behind stage, though, is the thing you don't usually see, right? When you go see a play, you're in the audience and you look at the stage. Behind the stage is not where you're supposed to see. The camera in this movie lets you go behind the stage. But that's normally when you see a play, you're there to see the thing in the front. The stage, but everything in this movie, there's covering like wallpaper, and then there's something hidden, something you're not supposed to see, like backstage. And that pattern will continue and continue and continue through this movie. Okay, so now that we have the basic setup of the film, let's get started on Barton Fink. You give me that Barton Fink feeling, Los Angeles. I love this movie so much. It's very funny. You want to find a right of Fink? Throw a rock. Do me a favor. Throw it hard. Um, all right. I'm sorry. I love it so much. Um, okay, so we're introduced to Barton Fink, who is very uncomfortable with fame. He's a very successful New York City playwright, um, and he writes plays about ordinary people, regular people, lower class people. Um, and he's very successful with his play in New York. The critics love him. Um, and he goes to a restaurant where they're sort of celebrating. He's very uncomfortable with fame. He's very uncomfortable with success. He doesn't feel like it's good enough, and he feels like maybe getting complimented is going to weaken him or make him a worse writer or something. He doesn't trust all the people saying nice things about him. The first thing to understand about this movie, it's not. It is very important, but it's something that a lot of my students will not see and will not understand unless someone tells them. Barton Fink is Jewish. And they do say that in the movie, but it's important to understand it's partly why he's so uncomfortable at the restaurant. He meets these two. There's like these two people that he sits down to dinner with, and they're these very annoying. There's like a couple, and they're like weirdos. I feel like I wrote their names down. Surely, did I not? It's like Poppy. It's like something. It's like Saint Clair, something Saint Clair and Puppy. Poppy Montgomery or something, Poppy and Saint Clair. The point of these characters is that they are upper class Christians. Saint Clair and Poppy are very like I know my students maybe think of Jewish people as white, but they're very waspy, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant kind of names. And the sort of fancy room that Barton Fink is in is filled with sort of white people, and that Barton Fink's his hair really was one of the things that marks him as an outsider. He's Jewish, and at this time in history, Jewish people were often not they were considered to be non-whites, and they were not allowed in places like this. And Barton Fink is famous, and he's allowed. And I don't know, maybe the place doesn't discriminate against Jewish people, but the point is that Barton Fink feels like an outsider, and one of the things that makes him feel like an outsider is his Jewishness. He is surrounded by Christians, and his origins are Jewish. Okay, so and that's going to become important as we move forward, because at least one thing this movie is about, believe it or not, is God. Okay, so let's keep barreling forward with some things. He's so successful that he gets a chance to go to Hollywood. But he's worried he's selling out because the kind of theater he makes. He wants to make theater about everyday people for everyday people, and he's trying to make a difference in the world. Right? He's not like Joe Gillis. Remember, Joe Gillis just wanted to make some fucking money. Although maybe Joe Gillis started out wanting to make a difference in the world, but Barton Fink wants to make theater for the people, by the people. So not theater about rich people for rich people, which is what a lot of theater is. He wants to make theater about regular people, and he wants regular people to be able to go. I don't know if you've ever seen a play in New York City, but they are crazy expensive. Harry Potter tickets, oh my God. And the point is that Barton Fink distrusts. It's important to understand what kind of play he doesn't like. He talks about it later in the movie, but I'll talk about it now for a bit. He doesn't like plays that are about kings and queens and fancy rich people, where the audience for the play is also rich people who paid a lot of money for their tickets to see the problems of other rich people up on stage. This is the kind of thing that it's popular. It was popular and it is popular about seeing the sort of trials and tribulations of fancy people. But with theater tickets are so expensive that the stories are about fancy people, and the only people in the audience are fancy people. And Barton Fink doesn't want that. He wants his plays to be about regular everyday people, and he wants regular everyday people in the audience. Okay, so I think we've done a good job kind of starting off with this, and I'll see you guys in the next installment.